Can you hear my chair squeaking?
Yeah.
Okay. That's like I need to oil that chair.
At least we know who to out.
I'm gonna be sitting really still like, what's wrong with that guy?
Hello, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Terminal X conversation, Designing a Career in Sport. We have got an awesome bunch of TX creators to introduce you to in just a moment's time. You can see them all here, ready and raring to go. We've got 4 professionals who have carved out really different but equally awesome careers in sport, and they're based right around the world. My name's Neve Owens. I'm a TV and radio host in Australia. I specialise in sport too, and I feel so lucky to get to work in an area that I've always loved so much. So I'm pumped to get to hear how our TX creators launched their own sporting journeys. Let's meet them now. Alicia Ferguson first up. She's a former Matilda. She played at 2 Women's World Cups and an Olympic Games. She's now a TV presenter and producer with Optus Sport, BBC, ABC, BT, heap of other letters as well. Ish, hello.
Always good to see you, Neve. Always good to work with you again as well. We had so much fun in France last year, didn't we? Can't believe it was a year ago.
Sure did. I reckon that's going to get a few mentions over the next hour or so.
Definitely.
Nicolás Miranda is joining us from Madrid. Nico is an elite sports performance consultant with global leader Catapult and now works with the likes of Real Madrid. Hey, Nico, great to see you.
How are you? Very, very happy to be here.
It's very nice to have you on board. Reef, if we come back home to Australia now, Reef Heazlewood is a pro surfer. He competes on the World Surf League and just generally gets massive air as often as possible. Really, Reef, awesome to have you on board.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neve. Really awesome. I'm looking forward to learning a few things myself. So yeah, it should be really good.
Lonny Hurley in Portland, graphic and uniform designer at Nike for 10 plus years. Hey, Lonny, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really stoked to be here.
It's awesome to see you. Now, before we get started, guys, if you're watching at home and you haven't already, we would love you to jump on over, sign up to Terminal X online. You can do it right now for free. You'll get a welcome email with a link to our Slack account. And that is really important because you'll be able to head straight across to our Slack channel and meet our creators, ask all of your own questions as soon as we jump off this conversation here. You'll also be in the running to win some really cool Nike kicks. I'm going to tell you a bit more about how to do that later on, but start having a think about who you reckon has the best kit in world sport, the best jersey. Lonny won't take offense if you don't choose one of his, but look, if you can, might increase your chances of winning. To be in the draw, you've got to sign up by midday tomorrow. So jump on over and do it now, and you'll get the chance to meet our creators straight after this session as well. Now, I want to start with some of the best points, the best parts of having a career in sport. I'm going to ask each of you to nominate a bit of a headline moment in your own careers in just a moment's time. Ishi, I want to claim that yours as being a multiple world record holder, the story of which had me absolutely terrified to meet you to begin with. And look, still has me pretty keen to stay on your good side, I've got to say. Tell us about that first up.
Come on, Nevo, you know I'm a lover and not a fighter. I'm misunderstood. So first of all, we share the second world record, didn't we, in France, actually, for the longest continual game for a charity called Equal Playing Field. But the illustrious world record is the fastest red card at a World Cup, at any World Cup. So I was sent off. I was walking off the pitch when the clock was 1:37. Yeah, 97 seconds into a 90-minute game.
And how old?
Straight red card. I was 16 at the time. Yep, 16. It was at New York Giants Stadium, the old New York Giants Stadium, in front of 40,000 people against China, our third group game. And yeah, I upended a Chinese left back and got my marching orders straight away.
If you haven't seen it, check it out online because Reef, if you think you get some air, you should see what happened to this poor player after he was done. It's unbelievable. But
she did land on her head, didn't she?
I've labelled that your career highlight. She sure did. I'm going to talk about some of your real career highlights over the next hour or so. But as a teenager, on the international arena, there must have been some serious learnings, some serious lessons that you took from that.
Yeah, that was huge. It was, I mean, I wouldn't wish it upon any 16-year-old to go through that because it was quite harrowing. And as I was walking off the field, all I was saying to myself was, don't cry until you get off the pitch, like don't cry, which then I did cry for the rest of the game. But I think the main learning from that was I had to take the emotion out of how I applied myself to games, because I was so hyped up. I didn't sleep the night before. It was the first time I'd played any minutes in the tournament. Wanted to do really well, and I was too focused on the outcome rather than the process. I was focused on thinking I was going to score a winning goal rather than what I needed to do to actually perform well. And it was a harsh lesson to learn, but I'm really glad that I learned it at such a young age, because really after that moment, the way I prepared for each match was literally, it's a game, it's a process. You need to make sure, you know, your attitude, application and effort is okay, and everything will take care of itself.
And you've ridden one part of that roller coaster of being an international athlete pretty early. Lonny, Ish could break world records in your industry as well, purely based on her sneaker collection, which is absolutely unbelievable. If you had to give us a headline moment, what would yours be?
Oh man, a headline moment. I think, I don't know, being at Nike, you have the opportunity to, you know, bump elbows with large athletes. And I was just standing there, and this giant man walks past me, and he looks at me, sticks out his hand that like covered my whole arm, and he said, "I'm LeBron James." And I was like, yes, you are. And his hand like came up to like halfway through my arm, and I was just like, you are a very large human. And that was, yeah, that's my highlight. I don't tackle people. I don't go really any faster than walking, so I don't have any true sport highlights. But yeah, you know,
that is a pretty epic one in your own right. Nico, what about for you? You're a performance consultant. So where do you get your kicks? Is it in watching teams that you're working with really put it together on the court or on the field, or is it seeing that individual performance from athletes?
Actually, none of those. I think that my highlight comes from the combination of different things from my job. So I get to travel a lot and visit different clubs in different countries. So I think that the highlight for me is one of the first solo trips that I did for Catapult. Was actually from the south of France to the north of Spain. And I just rented a car, and I had to drive through all these cities and meet different people at different clubs. And I think that experience of being able to meet different people and to experience how different clubs have their own culture and completely different and separate to each other, even though they're playing the same sport, but then shutting off and grabbing my camera and just taking some shots from the different cities there, which is amazing, so beautiful. I think that combination of life with work and the exciting bit of sports was it has been the highlight of my career every time that I get to do it.
And it is an epic element that all of you guys have managed to nail, that international travel and seeing new places as part of your working life, which is unreal. Reef, I'm going to take a guess at yours as well. And just like Nico did, you can totally just say, nah, mate, that's not the case. Was it last year in Hawaii, a couple of massive front side airs that went absolutely viral online? What was that sudden spike in interest in who you are and what you do? What was that like?
It was pretty crazy. Just because I've been surfing my whole life, and then to put up those couple of aerial maneuvers to Instagram and the internet, and to just get that response from everyone took me by complete surprise. And because like, it was probably definitely the best airs that I've ever done to date. But I'd always kind of been working towards that. And so, yeah, it was like, that was always my goal. And then I kind of did it, and it felt good, but I was like, all right, I can do better. And so then to like have people go, wow, that's insane. Like, and to get it like posted everywhere and stuff was like, okay, like it was actually, yeah, it was really good. So I was like, all right, like, yeah, that it goes pretty well, and hopefully I can keep doing more of those, and then work towards getting better still. So yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, kind of hyped just with everyone like coming up to me going like, wow, those hours were crazy the week and a couple weeks later. And I'm like still having people post it now. So it was pretty unreal.
I want to get you to throw it back and tell us about whether there was a moment in your life when surfing, which you've obviously done since you were young, became more than just something that you love doing with your mates, you love getting out in the surf, and a moment where you realized, you know what, I could actually do this as a job.
I almost feel like it was just gradual. Like it was never really one turning point where I was like, all right, I can make it. It was like, I started surfing when I was 4. And it was always a family thing that we did. We'd never stay at home and do chores on the weekend. We'd always be down at the beach. And so it was just a complete love for the ocean and the beach that started it. And from there, I was just always into surfing. My sister and my dad did it, and mum would occasionally do it too. And so then from there, just with friends and stuff, and we were all just pushing each other. And I was just looking at the top guys on the tour and going, I want to be there and I want to be one of those guys. And that started from a really young age. So, yeah.
I love that I've never managed to this day to stand up on a surfboard and you were doing it at 4 years of age. Unbelievable. Ish, you made your debut for the Matildas at 15 as a teenager. And at that time in women's sport, it wasn't seen as a sensible long-term career choice. You weren't going to be able to pay your rent. You weren't going to be able to put food on the table by playing international football for Australia as a woman then. What kind of support did you get throughout that early stage of your journey?
I think it's funny because the first time I got selected for the Australian team, I was proud, obviously, but the main thing I was happy about was that my parents weren't going to have to pay for the trip, and we were going to Europe for 8 weeks, I think. So as a 15-year-old, it was just an epic experience. But I think the game changer was Sydney getting the Olympics. Our program went full time down at the Australian Institute of Sport. So I moved away from home when I was 16, leading up to the 99 World Cup and the 2000 Olympics. And that really catapulted, the potential and the sport into the mainstream and everyone. And we had all eyes on Sydney at the Olympics, at a home Olympics. And that really, I think, kickstarted what is now and the momentum that we gained from that period of time at the 99 World Cup and then the 2000 Olympics to see where the Matildas are now. And it was, it was a fun time. And everyone wants to go to an Olympics. And I feel very privileged and very lucky that I went to a home Olympics as well, because it was an extraordinary experience.
Did you imagine then that you'd still be basing your life's work really on football all these years later?
Yeah, because I've always been a football nerd. I've loved it. It's in my blood. I've got Scottish heritage on my dad's side. So
that's where the fire comes in.
That's where the fire comes from. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They taught me how to tackle. But similar to Reef, I can't ever remember a time in my childhood where football wasn't involved. My brother, I'm the youngest of 5, but my brother closest to me used to have me out in the backyard. He used to kick lumps out of me. He used to make me get the ball if I kicked it over the fence. But that really drove that competitiveness in me. And it was weekends, it was afternoons, it was before school. I used to get to school early to play football with the boys in the park, and then stay late after school to hang around playing, and then at lunchtime as well. And so I think my progression into production took me a little bit by surprise, because I always thought I'd go into coaching, but I always knew that I'd still be involved in the game at some level.
I want to ask you about that transition and what that was like when you made that transition. But first, Nico, we've heard from the athletes there to begin with, you're helping other people reach their physical performance peak rather than chasing that ball or chasing that wave yourself. Did you realize when you were at high school in the early days that the career path you have taken, that was even an option?
No, not in the slightest. Actually, my path is completely different. I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I was like 18, 17, I think I was bouncing between studying theater or maybe biology or maybe psychology. It was like all over the place. But then I got injured. I used to play basketball. I'm 175, so I knew that I wasn't going to have any kind of future in the sport. but I got a pretty bad injury on my shoulder, and I went to a physiotherapist. And I really liked that, like the way that this person was helping me get back into like normal life and then back into sport. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Maybe I can jump into that. So I started physiotherapy, and then I got a little bit bored with how in Chile, where I grew up, physiotherapy was actually being done. So I was like, maybe I should move into something a bit more scientific. So then I did a postgraduate diploma in exercise physiology and then a master's in sports science. I was like, oh, okay, I really like this because it's like finding the reason why someone is strong or someone is fast. And if it's not, like, what are the physiological things that we need to do in order to get to that level, right? So then I started working as a consultant back in Chile, and I started getting more and more into the, like, what are the things that can give you that like 1% extra, right? And technology is something that is moving so fast, and very few people know how to actually handle it. So that's when I started going into, all right, a more sports tech industry. So it was a very much kind of like a serpentine road, but I think that I've only realized that I could mix all of these things that I've done, I'd say when I was 25, 23, when I realized actually these things that seem very scattered, and so far I've seen them as like a burden because I've never specialized in one single thing, actually are very useful because I'm able to go into a club and speak to the physio or speak to the exercise physiologist or speak to the player, and I can kind of relate with everyone. So that has been probably like the best thing from my background. Does that make sense?
It does. So ultimately, taking that circular route to get to where you are now makes you better at your current gig.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So ultimately, taking that circular route, that different route to getting to where you are now, makes you better at what you do today.
100%. 100%. I think that more than it makes you better than other people, it makes you unique in a way. Like you have to, this is the way that I see it. You have to try to find the things that make you unique, that make you stand out. And how can you use that to, in my case, help fitness coaches or help players or help physios to actually understand more about the things that are going on. So 100%, yeah, spot on.
Lonny, you took a different route to get to where you are now as well. You're a fine artist as well as a designer, and yet post high school, you ended up in the Navy. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I grew up in a town of 872 people in South Texas, and yeah, it was one road out or stay, and I took that one road out, and that one road took me to the U.S. Navy. And that, yeah, so I spent my 4 years, earned my my GI Bill that pays for college in the States, and ended up coming out of the Navy and wanting to be a photojournalist. And like I was looking at University of Texas, and I was like, yeah, gonna go Longhorns, you know, and I'm gonna live this collegiate dream, and realized that photojournalists weren't making any money in the early 2000s. This was, you know, not the path for me. And then also I had to get a lot of extra credit to like get into university. So I was in community college and met a print shop owner, Sam Coronado, who he really took me under his wing. And I learned a lot through Sam Coronado and my friend, who became my friend Paul Fuchik and Eric Montes. And we were printing posters, and we started seeing these posters come through, and Eric and I were just like, kind of like those, like the guys, like the sous chef. They're like, I don't want to just be the sous chef anymore. I want to be like the chef. And so like, I don't want to just print people's posters. I want to design them. And so I got launched into this early 2000s like rebirth of the rock poster in Austin. And so that was kind of like my introduction into design. And then from there, I went and spent a lot of money to go to a fancy graphic design school, and started my career in apparel graphics. And the first step out of university wasn't at Nike, it was at Abercrombie and Fitch. So that's that was the first jump off. And so from there, you know, a couple steps down the road, then I landed at Nike.
Even that jump though from the rock poster scene, which must have been a fun area to be working in, to decide to leave that where you're making some coin and go back to study formally, that would have been a big call in itself.
Yeah, it was really a push to like I didn't have education past high school, and I joined the military to be able to get this education, you know. And so there was a recruiter at my community college who, like, he saw my portfolio and he said, please come to Atlanta. And so I went to Atlanta just to learn like those, like the finer rules, you know, because you have to know the rules to be able to break the rules. And so I went and learned the rules, and now I get to break them.
You've worked hard to have that right. We've got a viewer question from Saskia. Saskia, thank you so much for getting in touch. We'd love to hear from you with your questions at home. Saskia says, what's the biggest setback you've experienced and how did you bounce back from it? Reef, I want to put that one to you.
Yeah. So last year at the beginning of the year, I actually lost my main sponsor, which was Billabong at the time. And so basically I lost my biggest financial support. And so I was just kind of going, all right, like, how can I still make this dream of mine possible? Because I want to be a pro surfer. And so like I've got to make a way to get the money to be able to do the traveling. And so then I started actually just contacting new sponsors myself, which I found was really good to just get in contact with them and show them who I was. And so yeah, I was just trying to show people who I was. And so doing that, and just realizing that I wanted it, and that gave me the drive and the passion to really push forward and persevere. And so then, yeah, just kind of going, all right, like there's a couple ways that I can do this. I can do really well and earn prize money. And then, yeah, just try and present kind of my best self to the sponsors, which I ended up doing, and got a new sponsor with Hurley, which was pretty awesome. And so, yeah, it was just working harder. Like I'd kind of like it was a really awesome step for me, kind of losing that sponsor, because it just showed me that there was 10% that I could still be working a bit harder. And so that was really good. And just it made me realize that I could expand myself too. Like I want to be a pro surfer, but at the same time, there's other life skills that I need to learn. And so during that time, I was like, all right, like I want to get to know my sponsors better, and for my sponsors to get to know me better. So before that, I'd had a sports manager, and I just decided to do that myself, to get into contact and just to be able to have them talk to me directly. And I felt that really helped.
I've read as well that you found that experience and having to be proactive in your response to it, that you reckon it made you a better person. Yeah,
definitely. It makes you work a lot harder, and it makes you just look at every aspect, because you've got the physical side of surfing, you've got the mental, and then you've got what you're doing out of the water. And so I wanted to be the best person I could be in and out of the water. And I kind of realized that, sponsors support athletes, but then I wanted to be able to not just take that and use it for myself, but to be able to go, all right, like they're giving me the support. What can I do to make their brand better, and to hopefully get them kind of put back the money that they're putting into me, and the time and effort that they're doing into me and back into them. And so, yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, it was good.
A learning experience. What about for you, Ish? There's plenty of industries that go with that kind of throw you in the deep end approach. You either sink or you swim, and TV media is definitely one of those. You worked for the ABC in the W League after you retired as a professional player. But I reckon the major launchpad for you came with that 2011 ESPN World Cup gig. What kind of challenges did you face in that role?
The biggest challenge I think I faced was imposter syndrome. I was sitting amongst these but I was the world record holder, these World Cup winners, Olympic gold medalists. And I was a holding midfielder that played for the Matildas, and it didn't have the CV that those other players did. I was sitting next to the likes of Mia Hamm and Brandy Chastain and Kate Cabrera-Markgraf, and I used to just pinch myself thinking, how did I end up here? But it was I had to have the confidence that I deserved to be there. And that came very quickly. And it was a fantastic experience. It was a huge production. They spent, 10 or $15 million on it, something I'd never experienced before. There was a huge mobile studio traveling around Germany. So I had to learn very quickly, because I'd done co-commentating and a little bit of, being a reporter next to the presenter, similar to what I did with you, Neve, but that I hadn't done live TV to the extent that I was getting thrown into. But it was a fantastic learning experience. And actually that then catapulted the rest of my career, moving over to London, then moving into production. And also it was such a fun tournament. It was so much fun. It was, I can't say that it was work. It was basically like 6 weeks of having a jolly, watching football, talking about football, and traveling around Germany with this wonderful support for what was, one of the best World Cups that I've ever experienced.
And I love that attitude. And I think that attitude makes you so good at what you do and so able to deal with challenges as they arrive, because you do genuinely love what you're doing. But they are long days, and you are working every day throughout a tournament. So you're doing maybe 30 days straight, long days. You get in the zone with it, don't you? The adrenaline starts to pump, and you can make it through that period. But there's challenges that come up and crop up with that kind of tournament experience along the way.
Yeah, there's always times when you have your cranky pants on, don't you? And it's it's a stressful environment, but I think it's trying to maintain some perspective on what you're doing and the opportunity that you have to be covering these tournaments, to be doing something that you love, to be talking about something that you love, and still being able to experience the atmosphere of it. Long days, I could take long days every day of the week. And I think even as an athlete, you basically spend your whole career being tired, sore, hungry, and a little bit cranky, because it's just every single day you're up early, you're training, your body hurts. And I think that definitely prepares you for a long tournament on the other side of things. But yeah, you got to keep perspective. Like I say I've got the best job in the world, and I feel so grateful that I'm actually working and doing what I love and still involved in sport.
And as long as you keep the food up to her, she's okay. You do not want to see a hangry Alicia Ferguson. Lonny, you spend a lot of your time out of the design studio and at sports grounds and stadiums as well. Tell us a little bit about that other side of your work and how you get your inspiration.
Yeah, going to be in the event and being there with the fan and seeing the athlete perform with your kit, and just being able to like glean that information and like those feelings from the fan and the athlete. It's pretty, like there's nothing like that experience, like the live sport experience. And then post-match, pre-match, going around the outside of the stadium, seeing all the fan art, the bootlegs, the scarves at the footy matches that are just outside of what a company like Nike could do, but seeing like those fun insights that the fans bring out, and sometimes they're a little aggressive, a little non politically correct. So it's definitely they're definitely humorous, and it can add some flavor to the game, and and we just it's fun, and you get to see like that deeper soul.
Maybe ultimately adding some flavor to your designs as well.
Sometimes, yeah.
Lonny, I was just going to say, sorry, Neva, I was just going to say, and you appreciate this, but as an athlete and like when you get a kit that you love and you're so proud to put it on, it makes you, it is, we talk about those 1%, but you do get that feeling inside you, that warm, fuzzy feeling as an athlete when you put that kit on. And I'm sure you've heard it from many athletes as well, how that can actually make a big difference in the way they perform.
Yeah, it's the it's the old adage of look good, feel good, play good.
Exactly.
And
it's so
it's
true.
like, and if you really like, you feel like a superhero, and it's like, that's what we want to provide you with, that feeling. And it's like, in those little, like on a lot of the Nike kits, you'll see on the inside those little inner pride messages, and just like, that's for you. That's for the athlete. That's and also, it's for the fan, and it's just that deeper connection.
Reef, does that work for you as well? You don't necessarily get the same kind of design vibes externally in your weddie, but how does it work in terms of you heading out into the surf, having the right vibe, feeling like it's going to be your day?
Yeah, definitely. It's a big thing because one of the hardest challenges is when you're not feeling great going out. And so if you're feeling great and you're just ready to go have fun, it just makes the surf all that much better. And I definitely like having good clothes to wear when I'm going out, like good wetsuits or whatever. It definitely makes you feel kind of more professional or something. So it's pretty cool.
Which links us back, if you're watching at home, we would love you to head over to Terminal X online, sign up, it's free, and you'll be able to join us on our Slack channel to continue this conversation after we wrap up here. And that's what we wanted you to tell us. In terms of that jersey, that kit, your favorite sporting team, what is your absolute favorite? Hopefully it's one of Lonny's. If it's not, look, still good. We'd love you to head over and sign up on Terminal X, head to Slack and share that with us as well. What about for you, Nico? That gives us a little bit of an insight into kind of a day in the life for Ish and for Reef and for Lonny. You're pulling together so many different elements in your working environment. Give us a bit of an idea of what a normal day looks like for you.
So it's funny because team sports are usually following a very strict routine, right? You have very specific set days and the week should look like this and whatnot. So it could feel like it's very routine-like, it's very similar one day to the other, but actually every day is just completely different to another, because you have different challenges on each session. So basically for me, if I had to say, I'll tell you what kind of days I have. I have days where I'll just go into a club and I'll sit down with the fitness coaches and we'll try to understand what are the performance problems that these guys are facing. Are we having a bunch of injuries, or actually some of our players are peaking right before the game, but others are actually like fried and they're not performing very well. So trying to understand those problems and then figure out, okay, so what kind of data do we have to like try to shine a light on that problem so we can solve it. So that could be, that's what I call like an analytical day. It's not very common, okay? That's an ideal day, not very common. Say the second type of day is when you arrive and nothing works. So you arrive and the athletes are arriving all at different times where they're not supposed to, and people are trying to measure things and can I have a little bit of your urine, and can I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And it's just a mess. But I guess that's what differentiates great clubs from the rest, that even in that chaos, they're able to maintain the priorities and the quality of the things that they're doing. So everything up until the moment that they go out to the pitch and train is basically preparation to get them to actually perform, because every training session is unique. Every training session is the highest they have to perform on that specific day. So then how do they go from that chaos into the this more concentrated and focused state where they listen to a coach and they just perform, and I'm there trying to help out with different things? That is the chaotic type of day. And then we have another one where it's like when everything works amazing and you're able to, I think, more present results. So this is more at the end of the week or at the end of the month or at the end of the season, where you've collected all the data, you know kind of the things that you have found, and you know also the things that you thought were true at the beginning of the season, and now you realize they're not. So you have to come up with some ideas on how you show this information to the players or, well, any key stakeholder in the organization, and try to have this balance between showing things that they were thinking and kind of confirming that, but also challenging them into how can we actually do better? How can we challenge the norm on what we have been doing so far and try to do something different, right? Because fear of something different is something very, very common in this industry. So you have to be very creative in a way on how do you actually show this. And that's where data comes into place, because data allows you to visualize things in different ways that could actually transmit that message much better. So I think that those are the three types of data that I could have with my job.
So while technology obviously has a huge role to play, data has a big role to play as well. Communication must be massive.
The most important thing. If there's one key thing that I could say is the most important thing in this industry is communication, because you're able to acquire information from your phone these days, right? You're able to go from no knowledge to average knowledge in a week, if you really put your mind to it. But the ability to actually communicate and be empathetic and be humble to sometimes acknowledge that you were wrong, and sometimes being strong and confident to actually go against someone that, is the head coach and he thinks that this is the way that they should be training, but I can see that is actually hindering performance. So to understand what's the best way to actually communicate that for the better of the team is something that is very difficult, and it comes from experience and from being, I guess, very humble and from having some tough falls along the way. But for sure, communication is by far the most important thing.
Communication, creativity, Lonny, must be hugely important in your industry as well. How do you approach a new brief? When it lands on your desk, what do you do?
Tear it up. No, just kidding. It's being in a place like Nike where you're not only creating for the company you work for, but we work, with all these other assets. We work at the clubs and the federations, and so you have two clients that you're looking at, and so being able to communicate with sports marketing at one level, and then all the way, I'm not even going to say down, all the way across to your development of the kit and being able to get it to the factory and to get it made. And so there are so many people from brief to pitch that, it touches so many hands. I'm a blip. I'm 6 weeks on a 2-year calendar, and so it's just.
Is that the time frame? From when the brief lands on your desk until we see the jersey, the kit on a player on the field, are we talking 2 years?
I would say in most cases on at that level, like any kits that you see from Puma, Adidas, Kappa, any of that, it's these, it takes a while to make these, and because it's always tweaking the details, and so you want to make sure that it lands right on the pitch. And and just knowing that you're only a little part of this, it has to take the ego out, because there's no time for it. It's there's definitely things that you'll fight for as a creative, it's just this this is the little piece that I want. It's like this pink needs to land on pitch. That's my signature, And so there's definitely things you want to fight for as a creative, but learn to fight your battles and like which battles you want to pick and what's really important. So communicating all the way across that span from brief to pitch, it can be like communication. If it's not there, you're not landing on pitch. You're gonna have an arm missing on a kit top.
That's a massive message as well across any industry, right? In terms of learning to pick your battles and to know which ones are important and which ones are worth fighting for. I've got a question from Matt to any of our panelists. Did you ever have a backup career in mind, or is it better to focus everything into the one thing? Reef, what about you first up? Do you have a plan B?
I would have said no. But just recently, I've been trying to think of something and, like I'm 20 years old now and, I'm just starting to get the inkling of what I might be able to go into afterwards, or if surfing doesn't happen. And so I feel like I have a passion for kids. And so I'm currently just kind of looking at all the different areas that I could work with kids. So I've looked at maybe possibly working in recreational centers. I'm not sure if I'm quite cut out for being a school teacher, but just kind of a couple of things like that. I've also, because I'm in the surfing industry already, I'm working towards getting my coaching credentials for that. And so I'd be probably love to do some of that sometime just with kids, kind of hoping to pass down the knowledge that I've learnt from coaches before.
And I think studies show that athletes who have, quality hobbies, who undertake education, have interests outside of their sport, tend to have longer and more successful professional careers inside their sport as well. Ish, what about for you? Because you do these days television presenting and producing. You're in front of the camera and behind the camera. So you have that great understanding of how it all pulls together, but you also have options.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as far as longevity career-wise, the producing, I prefer the producing because it's storytelling. It's what's the story. You get to, sit down and speak to people and research these stories and travel the world. And I absolutely love that part of it. I feel like it's more, maybe I feel like it's more wholesome. I can get my hands into it a lot more doing that. But I think a lot of athletes, we're lucky we have transferable skills, and it's like you say, communication is one of those key ones. But I had to completely retrain in a career when I was 30 years old, which moving to another country, not having any idea about production, actually getting into the production side of things, but kind of through necessity, which was difficult when there was 20-year-old, 21-year-old assistant producers who knew everything about TV. And that was difficult. And I wasn't sure whether I was cut out for it. I didn't think, whether I was cut out for live TV, and it was a difficult time. But actually having that resilience as an athlete and from all those previous experiences, you just have to keep plugging away at it every day. And like I said, it's, even if I didn't know what I was doing, I was making mistakes, but I was learning from those mistakes. So as far as personal growth and career growth is concerned, as difficult as it was when I moved to London, that was such a seminal moment in my life and my career. And I grew as a person, professionally and personally. And it's just, I'd go into work every day, and the days where I was, having a shocker and making mistakes and not knowing what I was doing, I went back to those things. I just had to make sure my attitude was all right. I had to make sure that I was putting in the best effort that I could. And I had to make sure that I was at least applying myself and trying to learn from those mistakes. And I think, again, it's back to that process rather than the outcome. And I think it's something that I've taken with me, and I think has actually allowed me to be where I am now.
And that experience, that resilience is massive. Please.
Yeah, no, Alicia, I think that I love what you said. I think that one of the keywords that resonate there with me is transferable skills. I think that many people, and especially like growing up, we tend to think things are very enclosed, right? So this is the career path A and this is the career path B and this is the career, like I at least in my experience, it's rarely like that. But if you do think about these are the skills that I learned with this, where would I be like to be moving? And if you have those transferable skills, then it gives you so much more options, right? For then to be able to decide at that point in your life, when you're already grown and you have more experience, what are the things that are actually taken for you? So I completely resonate with what you said.
I do also think, sorry, just to jump in again, that I am quite lucky that I did think I was going to have a career in football coaching, and through, again, moving to another country, a necessity, and I needed a steady job, I got into production. But I absolutely think being in production and being in TV and being in sport perfectly suits me, because it's similar to being in a team. It's similar to being in a football team. You do have to, it's the sum of all parts. It's getting everything together. It's you, like you said, Nico, it's communicating with people, and I love it. I could keep coming back to it. I love the fact that it's storytelling. It's similar, Lonny, even in design, you're creating stuff that's telling a story, and I absolutely love that. And I'm glad I ended up here, but it feels like I should have always been here. You know what I mean? But I didn't plan to be here. But I think as you go along, and if you keep believing in yourself and you keep believing that you do have those transferable skills, you don't need to know exactly what you're going to do when you're a teenager. I had no idea. I thought I did want to be a professional footballer, and I was very lucky to have that. But it can change on a yearly basis. The goalposts will move. You don't have to be so stringent with them, you know, and that's even as a 30-year-old when I moved here, and now I'm 38, they move every single year. And I think people need to be not as hard on themselves about needing to work out exactly what they want to do at a certain point in their life.
Which comes back to Matt's question as well about having that backup career in mind, being open-minded as you approach life in general. Run Ranga Run says, how much pressure is there? Reef, I want to put this one to you, particularly when you're breaking in as a pro surfer and you're relying on those wildcard entries to events. You've got to be amped and ready for a last-minute call-up. How much pressure comes with that?
I'd say that a bit, but for me, it's mainly been from myself. Like my sponsors are always supporting me, kind of no matter what. So I've been really lucky with that. But for me, it's just I want to do the best I can, and so it's just always kind of remembering that I'll give my best and just leave the rest kind of out in the ocean. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always going to be going out there and giving it 100%. And last year I got a couple wildcards into the top tour events. And I just really started to focus on the process. And Alicia said this before, kind of with her World Cup, and just if you're thinking about the end result and kicking that goal or surfing the wave really well, you just kind of lose sight of what you have to do to get there. And so for me, it really helped to look at the process and go, all right, these are the things that I needed to perform well. And so that really helped with taking my mind off the pressure and wanting to do really well. It was just do these things and it should work out well.
Run, Ranga Run. I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to lose these guys in 10 minutes time when they head across to the Slack channel. So if you haven't headed to TX yet, Terminal X Online, make sure you do it now so you can get that email and you can join them on the Slack channel and ask your own questions as well in about 10 minutes time. Nico and Ish, you both mentioned there throughout that discussion, key skills, you know, and we've found and we've heard from you guys how rewarding a career in sport can be. There's so many different examples of that. But in terms of key skills that really help you establish that career in the future, I want you to hit us up with a few of those. Nico, if we head to you first, I feel like you have a really questioning mind, you know, you question everything all the time. So how important is it to find an industry, a role that suits the way your brain works rather than feeling like you need to change to fit into a certain field?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think, yeah, I think it's very important. I think that the way that I would frame it is, like everyone's unique, right? And everyone has a specific set of skills and skills which they are comfortable with, right? This is what I like. I always think, like, the things that I could say I'm good now or that I feel comfortable doing now are the same things that I had when I was 12, same things that I had or same skills that I had when I was 16. It's just that I wasn't aware that they were like skills, right? So it's like saying you always have superpowers. You just need to find how they work together, and then you find where you can put them to the best of like whatever that industry is. So I think that is, like, if I had to say what the most important thing is, try to be self-aware of yourself, of your skills, of the things that you really enjoy and the things that you don't enjoy, but you know that will take you somewhere better. So life is like that. Life, sometimes you have to do stuff that you're not particularly super excited, but deep down you know that this is going to move you into a better place, and you do them, which is not the same to say that you have to do something that makes you unhappy because of money or status or whatever. So I think that, yeah, the most important one is self-awareness. If you are very self-aware, I think that wherever you're going, you will know how to do things and feel happy and feel like you're thriving.
What about in your industry, Ish? I feel like the importance of, being able to ad lib, to respond to setbacks well, to when the goalposts move, as you say, to be able to go with that is so important. I remember in France last year, I think it was in Grenoble, we were doing a live pitch side report before the start of the game. Yeah. We're looking at the crowd, the field is behind us. And we've got no idea that the sprinkler is slowly working its way around until ultimately we're live on air getting soaked. And the ability to respond to those situations, to not stick to script and to have some fun with it is so important.
Yeah, I think so. It's exactly right, Nevo. You have to have fun, and you have to have that ability to be flexible when things are going pear-shaped. And I always say, you need to make failure your fuel as well. And it's like everything, making mistakes is just an opportunity to learn, isn't it? It's an opportunity to grow. No one gets up in the morning and goes, I can't wait to make a mistake today. This is brilliant. Everyone is trying to do their best. But you hear it all the time. You hear it in sport, you hear it across industries. You have to make those mistakes to learn. You don't go out seeking them, but it's how you rebound, how you bounce back from those, and how you take on those opportunities to actually grow and learn. And, and also stuff like that. I think sometimes in TV, people can, take it all a bit too serious, but you can't forget what the audience wants to see. I want to see a presenter and the ex-footballer get hit by a sprinkler because it would be entertaining for me. It's a fun part of it, and you need to understand that you're not doing it for yourself. I think Lonny said, taking that ego away from design. You're doing it for the audience. You're doing it, for your client. You're doing it for other people, and you need to always remember that. Otherwise, you kind of lose sight of it, and it does become more about your own ego.
I had no idea you actually had a word with the groundsman that day, didn't you?
Like, exactly. Sprinklers on, yeah. Straight into Neve's head, please, straight into it.
Make sure you hit me first. Exactly right. What about that ability to switch off? You all work in, intense environments that have pretty high demands at different times. So looking at the other side of the spectrum then, how do you switch off and get that downtime? Lonny, is that where something like, your love of fine art, is that where that comes in for you?
Definitely. Yeah. Like, as a creative, one thing I did early was I set something aside for myself that I wasn't going to capitalize on. I don't know, maybe one day when I'm in the dirt somewhere and my son can capitalize on it. I don't know, maybe it'll be in a museum somewhere. But yeah, I do fine art painting, and I really kind of moved into like an abstract world because everything that I do is so focused. And so I just kind of, I feel shapes. I don't know if that, but like, that's what I feel shapes. And yeah, I'm in my studio right now.
Can you show us stuff?
I'll flash up one. So we're just like, this is 2 months in Hawaii.
Nice.
I love
So
it. So when you came back, that's what you started to work on.
yeah. It's just like, it's the waves, it's the sun, it's the coral, it's everything, and it's just like, yeah.
It's brilliant. What about for you,
yeah.
Reef? If you're surfing as your day job, what are you doing to switch off?
Oh, it's funny because like surfing has so many sides. Like you've got the competitive side, but then you've also got just the kind of culture and the laid back side. So I do go surfing to relax and just kind of zone out. But usually it's kind of on a different craft. Like you've got a short board and then you've got long board. And so you just take something out to have a different approach to the surfing that I usually do. And that just helps me just have fun and relax. And then I just love hanging with my family. I'm pretty close to them. And so, yeah, my sister likes to tease me a lot. So it's just fun and relaxing and bring me back to earth, definitely. And just, yeah, it just takes the seriousness out of it. So I do a lot of that and some reading and stuff. So a couple different things.
Keeps you grounded. That's my role with Ish, just to make sure she doesn't get too big a head at any stage. Just keep ribbing her constantly to keep her grounded. What about end goals? I know for athletes, Reef, you so often have this pinnacle, this end goal in mind that you're working towards. Is that something that you have, a clear target, a clear end goal?
Yeah, definitely. I have an end goal, and then I have kind of yearly goals and performance goals that just kind of get smaller and smaller, that always are leading to that end goal, kind of a world title and being the best surfer that I can be. And so, yeah, just at the start of the year, I kind of go, all right, like, where do I want to see my surfing improve? And so I work out those kind of goals with technique and stuff. And then I look at kind of the mental and physical sides of how I can be better. And so that goes into it. And then I look at results that I want at the end of the year, and just trying to make it all a possibility and a reality. Like I try and set pretty reasonable goals, and goals that can be a process too, not just like, that's the competition I want to win. It's like I want to see myself surf so many days, or I want to see myself surf in these conditions a lot more to improve in them. So yeah, there's all different goals, all working towards that end goal of being the best surfer and hopefully winning world titles.
And different approaches work for different people, right? Some people love that 5-year plan. They write it down. They like to see it every day when they wake up in the morning. Nico, you have a really different kind of approach that works for you. Tell us a little bit about how you tackle that end goal kind of outcome.
Yeah. So I tried to set up 5-year goals or 1-year goal, whatever, when I was like, I think 20, 21, and life was very clear in saying, nope, that's not going to work for you, because every time that I would set up a goal and I was working towards it, something would come that would completely change that path. So I remember feeling super frustrated and super like worn out, because I was working super like with a lot of intention towards this goal, but then everything on the path was looking like this is not actually what you should be doing, and you're actually not enjoying it. So I think I stopped because I just wasn't being happy with that way of living. So then I decided, you know what, instead of saying I want to be the sports scientist for Arsenal or whatnot, because
I'd prefer you went with Spurs, but fine, Arsenal will do.
Yeah,
I need
sure.
to help more.
Then my question to myself will be, what happens if you get there and you're not happy? What happens if you get there and you don't enjoy it for any reason? You reach the goal, but like, are you actually enjoying it? So then I kind of changed the approach, and I'm more looking for experiences. So what are the next experiences that I want to have in my life? And for example, when I was 20, I realized I want to be leading a team at some point. And hopefully within, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. That became something important. And for different reasons. So I started realizing, I have zero experience with that. I don't know anything about leading people. I don't know anything about management of a team or whatnot. So then it became easier to start trying to get the experiences that would give me that in order to become a good people manager at some point. And like that, I just keep doing that every so often. I don't even have a time frame. It's just when I feel like, okay, now I'm leading a team. So what would be next? What's the next experience that I want to be having? And obviously things, because you start achieving them, your goals start becoming different, sometimes more abstract, sometimes more concrete. But the key point is that I feel happy. I feel like this is the thing that I should be doing because it feels natural instead of just one goal or whatnot. So I think that that's the way that it's worked for me.
Yeah, which is awesome. There's so much that people can take out of that. We are basically out of time on this platform, but the good news is that all of our creators are going to head straight from here across to Slack to continue the conversation. They're each going to have their own channel, so you'll be able to hit up Ish or Nico or Reef or Lonny separately over on Slack. So if you haven't already, head over to Terminal X online, sign up. It's free. You'll get a welcome email, and in that welcome email, you'll get a link to our Slack channel and you'll be able to jump on in. We want to know, in order to be in the running to win those new Nike kicks that I've mentioned, we want to know what is the best kit, the best jersey in international sport. Ish, I feel like Nico or Lonny could get in trouble if they actually name something here. So as the person whose day job can't be impacted by their answer, have you got one for me?
Yeah, so mine is from the early 90s, Fiorentina's kit in the Serie A. So Fiorentina have this amazing purple. Their kits are consistently my favorite, but they were sponsored by 7-Up. It was a really cool retro kit, and their away kit had this purple on the top and then white on the bottom. It's an absolute quality.
I love it. I'm about to Google it. So if you want to be in the draw for those Nike kicks, you've got to sign up by midday tomorrow to Terminal X. You've got to nominate your team. But if you jump on over and do it now, you'll get to chat with our creators straight after this session as well. And you'll be in the running to win that awesome prize too. Guys, before I let each of you go, while everyone else is scrambling to get their Slack email and to sign up on Terminal X, I want to know what you've got coming up for our TXs over the next couple of weeks. Give us a bit of a summary. And Reef, I'm going to start with you because I reckon you went hard today on this front, and our TXs are going to reap the benefit of it over the next month.
Yeah, so today I was actually kind of with my surfboard shaper who shapes all my boards. And so I'm doing my best to kind of learn all the different aspects the surfboard that I ride. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing those things with you and designing a surfboard, and hopefully you guys can get in the water.
While we're on design, Lonny, what have you got in store?
Kind of a deep dive into what it is to build a team identity, and just looking into like the heritage of a club or like the history of a federation, and really pulling the nuggets out of that history to create an identity.
I love that. That it just goes to show how much thought, goes into the designs that you're producing, how much background work and inspiration. Nico, what about for you? What do you got coming up for our TXs?
So basically, I think that what we're going to do is just discuss different ways that people can get into the elite sports industry. I think that is super varied, and there's not only one path, and it's like it's different for different people. So it can be very academic, it can be very applied, it can be like in very different shapes and forms. So I think that what we're going to do is just trying to demystify some of the things that people think, and see if I can help anyone get into their dream jobs.
Ishi, you've already been playing keepy uppy with our TXs online. What's next?
I think I need to keep practicing my keepy uppies for a start. So there'll be a couple of things. There'll be some more football stuff, get everyone active, and for me to stay active as well under lockdown over here in the UK. But then on the other side of things, it's probably just production 101. how do you construct a story, how do you construct a feature, some interviewing techniques, and then talking about the difference between being in front and behind the camera.
Love it. How do you keep it interesting, like getting sprinkled in a live cross? Make sure you work that in as well. Guys,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I've loved meeting you all, learning about your careers in sport. There is so much there for us all to take away. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience today.
Thank you, Neve.
Thanks, Evo.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We really appreciate all of you guys tuning in at home as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, that's only part one of our conversation. Head on over to Terminal X, join us on Slack. The fun's going to continue over there. Good luck with your own journeys as well. And we'll see you at the Slack after party in a couple of minutes' time. See you soon.
Oh, I just got it.